Welcome back to Journey of a Ballaholic, the best talk show for basketball addicts. I'm your host, General HannibalYamro. Now, on this journey, I'm going to be giving you my reaction to the YouTube channel, Rusty Buckets. I'm going to be going over his updated 2021 NBA MVP race. So make sure you stick around to the end as I tell you what I agree with and what I disagree with. Now, if you don't know, if you're new to the channel, I'm a ballaholic. I'm absolutely addicted to basketball. Now, just like everybody, I've got my own opinions. But if you like opinions that are backed by facts, go ahead and hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and also be sure that you hit that bell notification and turn it on to all notifications. That way YouTube will alert you whenever I drop a new video.
Are you ready?
Okay, let's go ahead and jump right into this video. Now, I decided I wanted to do something a little bit different because here on this YouTube platform, we got a lot of different NBA personalities and a lot of different opinions on all things NBA, right? So I decided I wanted to reach out and kind of, tap into some of the minds of some of the other NBA YouTubers, and we're gonna start with Rusty Buckets. I've been watching his channel for a long time. If you haven't checked out his channel, definitely make sure you subscribe to his channel. I'll put a link in the description below. But Rusty Buckets is someone who has done an NBA MVP race before, and he just recently did an updated version. So I had to take a look at his version, and when I looked at it, I saw some things that I agree with, but I also saw some things, man, that I just don't agree with. And so I gotta touch on that, so we gotta address that in today's video. Now, let's go ahead and start it off with some of the things that I disagree with, right? Because for me, we're all entitled to our opinions, right? But as everybody knows, as a ballaholic, I believe your opinion should be based on facts. So let's start right with number one. One of the first and one of the biggest disagreements that I had with Rusty Buckets' analysis of his MVP race was he made an assumption that LeBron James had a weak MVP case prior to his injury. Not talking about right now. We're talking about prior to LeBron James' injury. He said he had a weak case. Now, the reason I disagree with that is not just because I'm a Laker fan, but I disagree with that because LeBron James was leading the Lakers to one of the best records in the entire NBA. You gotta remember, prior to his injury, the Lakers, I think, were 28-13. This was prior to the March 20th game against the Atlanta Hawks. They were 28-13. And LeBron was averaging 25 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, shooting efficiently from all over the court. The Lakers had the #1 defense in the NBA. For his defensive win shares, he was up there in the top as well. So LeBron was getting it done, and you gotta remember, Anthony Davis, his second best player, the unibrow, he had missed a lot of games. Anthony Davis still has only played 23 games this season. So Davis wasn't really clicking, you can call it NBA championship hangover. He wasn't clicking as much. LeBron was balling, LeBron was efficient, and he was available. Up until the point in which he got hurt. So my #1 disagreement was the fact that Rusty Buckets felt that LeBron James had a weak MVP case prior to his injury. Now, I will agree, his injury has taken him out of that running because prior to the injury, I had LeBron James as a top 2 candidate in the MVP race. But this is where I also disagree with Rusty Buckets. The second point was he alluded to the fact that Joel Embiid can still be in the MVP race despite the amount of games that he's missed. Now, this is where I kind of had to take a step back because he says that LeBron James has missed a lot of times, and even before that time that he missed, he didn't have a strong case. But Joel Embiid, who has missed more games than LeBron James, you gotta keep this in mind. Embiid has missed 18 games. Now, how is it that Joel Embiid still has a strong MVP case and he's missed 18 games, whereas LeBron James has only missed 11 games to date? And now he's saying that Joel Embiid, granted, he's got the stats, granted, the Sixers are rolling, but go back to prior to LeBron getting hurt. To me, it was Embiid and LeBron neck and neck. Now, you could have even said Embiid was #1, LeBron was number two. I wouldn't have had an issue with that. But to say that LeBron wasn't in the race, and then to say that Joel Embiid today is still in the race despite him missing 18 games, to me that just doesn't sit well, so I gotta disagree with those 2 major points. Now, probably the biggest disagreement that I have with Rusty Buckets and his updated MVP race was, in my opinion, almost blatant disrespect that I felt he put toward Donovan Mitchell. Listen, there was a comment that Rusty Buckets made where he said Donovan Mitchell is arguably not even the best player on the Utah Jazz. Now listen, this is no shot to Rudy Gobert, no shot to Mike Conley or anybody else on the Utah Jazz. But I don't know about you, to me it's not really much of a question. Donovan Mitchell is the best player on that Utah team. Rudy Gobert, the Eiffel Tower, is a defensive monster. But he's not impacting the game, the outcomes of the game, as much as Donovan Mitchell does. Donovan Mitchell, 26 points per game. What is he at? 4.5 rebounds, 5 assists. I mean, we understand Rudy Gobert averages more blocks and he averages more rebounds. But when it comes to points, assists, and even steals, Donovan Mitchell, out of the 5 major statistical categories, Donovan Mitchell is averaging more in 3 of those 5 categories. So to say that Gobert is arguably better than Mitchell, or even, as he alluded to, is better than Donovan Mitchell, I can't agree with that. Donovan Mitchell's the best player on the Utah Jazz, and the Utah Jazz have the best record in the NBA. Donovan Mitchell has to be in the running for MVP. So those were my biggest disagreements. Now, make sure you stick around to the end of this video because I'm going to give you my top 5 MVP rankings as where I stand as of today in as far as where people land up in this race. But now, I can't take shots at Rusty Buckets without giving him some credit on the things that I do agree with, because he made a lot of very good points. Now, where I definitely agree with Rusty Buckets when it comes to James Harden, one of the biggest things that's going to hold James Harden back is the fact that he's playing alongside of Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. Now, we got to kind of temper this thing because, yes, those guys have missed time. And I give James Harden a lot of credit because since they traded for him, the Nets have been a lot better with him than without him. So I get that. And they wouldn't be where they are without him. But the fact still remains that Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, these guys are elite players, and it does hurt James Harden's ability to win the MVP, as we've seen in the years past, and there's nothing you can really do to kind of shake that. Even though Durant has missed a lot of time, he is back now, and he's going to be back, so that's going to kind of play as a big factor into why James Harden probably is not going to win the MVP. Now, one of the second things that I really agree with where Rusty Bucket said was that when you look at a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo, he's suffering from a different perception than what James Harden is dealing with. The perception is it's hard to win 3 MVPs in a row, and I completely agree. This is one of the things I said before the season started when I gave my MVP rankings. Here's the reality. There's only been 3 players ever in the history of the game to win 3 straight regular season MVPs. That's Wilt Chamberlain, that's Bill Russell, and that's Larry Bird. Now, the reason I kind of discount Giannis is because all 3 of those players, when they won those 3 MVPs, they also won a championship, at least one championship, within the first 2 seasons. Giannis didn't even make an MVP, didn't even make the finals as an MVP winner in his first 2 years. So to say that he's going to now win the 3rd MVP in a row, when I just can't, I don't see that happening. Now, once again, the MVP is based on this season and this season alone. But as Rusty Buckets alluded to, the perception is there. And the perception is that, listen, what he did in years past is kind of held against him in this year. His stats are legitimate, they're elite as they've always been. The winning success for the Milwaukee Bucks is down in comparison to the past couple of years. But Giannis should be in the running, though I don't think he's going to win it. So I agree with Rusty Buckets there. Now, one of the third points that he made that I definitely agree with is when you look at Dame Lillard. Dame Lillard has been balling. He's actually, it's kind of flipped and reversed for him where he doesn't have the perception, but what he also doesn't have that I agree with Rusty Buckets on is the fact that he just doesn't have the wins. The stats are there, his clutchness is there, and the team is doing well because of him, right? Because there's been a lot of injuries with Nurkic, CJ, but right now they're in the 6th seed, and even though Dame Lillard is balling, he's not really doing anything historic, right? And so what we've seen over the years past is that the MVPs typically come from a top 3 seeded team. Typically. Remember, over the last 40 years, the only person to have won an MVP that was not a top 3 seed was Russell Westbrook, and that was his first year of averaging a triple-double, something that we hadn't seen done in over 40 years since the 60s when Oscar Robertson did it. So because of that, I agree with Rusty Buckets there that Dame Lillard is likely not going to win it because of his lack of wins as a team with the Portland Trail Blazers. Now, one of the last things I had to agree with is his opinion that Nikola Jokic, he's the leading candidate. Listen, let's be very clear, and I'm gonna break down to you who my top 5 guys are, but number 1 for me is Nikola Jokic. The Joker is out there, he's balling, man. This guy right here, and one of the things that I love so much about him is that he's on pace to do something historic. Similar to Dame Lillard, he doesn't have the wins that a typical MVP would have. Remember, typically they're top 3. Now, Denver's not far from that 3rd seed, but currently they're not in that 3rd seed, right? Or that top 3 seed. But they're about 5th right now in the Western Conference. They have the ability where they could actually climb. Excuse me, actually I think they're 4th seed if I'm not mistaken, because the Lakers just recently fell to 5th. So they have the ability to climb to that 3rd seed where the Clippers currently reside, but they're not there yet. But you got to give Jokic a lot of credit. Currently, the man is averaging 26 points, 11 rebounds, and 8.7 assists. The reason that 8.7 assist number is so amazing is because the only center to average, the highest average for any center from the assist standpoint was Wilt Chamberlain. Back in 1968, he averaged 8.6 rebounds. So Jokic is on pace right now to be the all-time leading assist per game assist average for a center in NBA history. So similar to what we saw with Russell Westbrook when he won his MVP year when Oklahoma City was the 6th seed, Jokic is in a similar stance where his team's winning and their team success is not really top 3 elite like we normally see, but his stats are so historic that, listen, you got to give it to him, man. I think right now, as of today, Jokic has to be number 1 in every person's MVP race. So I definitely agree with Rusty Buckets there. Now, here's going to be my, if you call it my top 5, right? Because I think everybody should agree with the number 1. But here, who are number 2, 3, 4, and 5 on my list? This is how I would rank them. Number 5, I've got Dame, right? He's only missed 2 games this season, and we talked about all the things he's doing, his stats, how he's holding that team together. Only missed 2 games. I got him number 5. Number 4 comes in, I got Giannis. Giannis has missed 6 games, and the reason I'm talking about the games missed is because availability does matter. He's only missed 6 games, so I definitely give him credit there, but because, like I say, his stats and his team's record right now is not being the number 1 seed in the East, even though they are top 3, and that voter fatigue, I think, is going to hold him back. Number 3, I got to give it to James Harden, which currently they're sitting with the number 1 seed in the East. I think the perception of him having the elite talent around him is going to hold him back, but I have him at number 3. Here's where a lot of people may disagree with me. But number 2, I got Donovan Mitchell. I don't think he's getting enough credit. Donovan Mitchell at 26 points, 4.5 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal a game. Listen, he's efficient from the field. Donovan Mitchell has the Utah Jazz with the best record in the NBA, one of the best defenses in the NBA, one of the best offenses in the NBA. He's a 2-way player. Tough, grit, grind. Like, he gives you everything that you want. Yes, I agree with Rusty Buckets. He's not a superstar, but where I disagree is that he is the best player on the best team currently in the NBA based on record. Therefore, he has to be in the running. Though I don't think he's going to win it, he comes in at number 2. So let me know in the comment section below, what do you think? How do you rank your top 5 MVP rankings? What do you think about my agreements and disagreements with Rusty Buckets? What do you think about these types of videos where I look at other YouTubers' rankings, other videos, and do my reaction based on the content that they provide? Let me know in the comment section below. Listen, as always, I appreciate you for taking a look at this video. Oh, before I go, I gotta give a shout out to Sin's Legacy. Check the shirt out. I don't know if you can see it all, but we got sinslegacy.com sponsored this shirt, so I definitely want to make sure I give a shout out to them. They got a nice logo on the back. I don't know if you can check that out and see that, but you got to take a look at their website. It's a brand new company. Take a look at it, sinslegacy.com. Check it out. Listen, until next time, make sure that y'all stay safe in the streets. General Hannibal X, I'm out. Peace.